Hi, I'm Paul. I'm here at my bike farm in Liguria, Italy. This is my Canyon Sender, and this is definitely the best performing downhill bike I've had in over 20 years of downhill riding. It's good. Right, to kick things off, this video is 100% sponsored by you guys. Everything you can see here I have paid for myself, full retail price, or there's a few parts that I had left over from previous jobs working at Pink Bike or doing different things. I've been completely independent from any bike brands, companies, media since the 1st of January this year. So here you're only going to get unbiased truth about these bikes. I'm positive that these are the only completely independent bike reviews anywhere online. If you like what I'm doing, you can go to the link in the description below and you can buy a raffle ticket to win this bike. There are 13,000 tickets for £1 each, which covers the cost of the bike, all the tuning parts, testing it, riding it, travelling to the bike parks, buying lift tickets, all that stuff. Plus Raffle takes 10%, so you can do the maths. I'm not making a huge amount of money out of this. It's all transparent, clear. If you like it, buy a ticket, or you can go to Ko-fi or Linktree, links in the description below, and buy a ticket or make a donation. And also like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Just before I started filming this, I hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so I should be super rich soon from YouTube advertising. Because I heard once you get to 1,000 subscribers, the money just starts coming in. Quick update on the farm. Everything's going really well here. I've been away quite a lot, riding and racing and visiting my brother in France, doing some different things, but everything's going well. I've also brought a Common Cell Supreme, which I'm testing at the moment as well. Very similar spec to this bike. I've been doing some back-to-back riding with them, which is going to come in a future video. The Norco Shore is still out of action. 12 runs from new, €5,000 bike. Bolt fell off, and I think I'm about 3 or 4 weeks now waiting for a new bolt. No idea when it's going to come. So yeah, that's £5,000 of credit card debt just sitting in the garage doing nothing. The Banshee's nearly finished. The only thing holding it back now from being usable is a gear cable, which I need to go and get some gear cables. As well as the Banshee, the Radon e-bike review, I'm going to finish that off soon, the next 2 parts of that. Just put those 2 projects on the back burner while there was a chance to get on some downhill bikes, get to some bike parks and just knock out some laps before the autumn winter comes. I've also got some really interesting bikes lined up if this thing sells out. I've paid some deposits. So let's just say handmade carbon from Poland, CNC machine gearbox bike from Switzerland, and another gearbox steel Israel machine from the UK. Hopefully all come in the next few months. Anyway, enough of that, let's get to the sender review. So I ordered the sender in a last minute panic to go and race the Masters World Champs in Pralloup in France, which is about 3.5 hours away that direction. I decided to do this about 3 weeks before the race. The bike arrived 2 weeks before the race, and I was definitely overly optimistic about how fit and skilled I was, and under optimistic about how good the other riders were. I really thought I had a chance at getting a medal, but fucking on point every single fucking line. Happy with that. Just one mistake, everything else fucking perfect. In the end I got smoked pretty bad. Miriam Nicole's brother Olivier won, and there was a lot of other really good and super pro old men riding there. But the real race was between 2 old and washed up British YouTubers. The big deal here, I'm pretty sure we didn't know it was happening, but the real jewel was the Astonator versus the Deaconator. Qualifying saw the Deaconator get Astonated by a couple of places, but a change of pace coming into the finals and the Astonator definitely got Deaconated. What am I even talking about? So I was a little bit disappointed with my result, but I had a really good race, no problems, nearly perfect run, nothing to complain about. got genuinely smoked down in 15th place. But taking the bike to a race situation did show up a lot of interesting things very quickly. My last video was about pre-race prep. I made a few errors here. A last minute panic to go to Rulesman to pick up a Kitsuma shock that arrived a few hours before I had to leave. Then I got to the motorway, which had just closed before I got there. It took me 8 hours to get there instead of 3.5 or 4. Missed the first half of practice day, driving through the night. Everything ready to practice after lunch. 2 o'clock practice started. Everything was ready. My shoes, helmet, goggles, bike, all checked. And did a last minute bolt check and snapped the main pivot bolt. Then I thought the race was over, but a bit of Instagramming later and got a solution. I went to the local Mr. Bricolage shop down in town, got a bolt, bolted it back together. Magic material called steel, which is extra strong and bends instead of snapping in general. That was on the bike for a few weeks. No problems, didn't come loose. Yeah, so missed the first whole day of practice, but I want to walk the track and I found some GoPro runs on YouTube. Watched those 7, 8, 10 times maybe before I went to bed the night before. First run on the bike, felt super at home, nailed all my lines first run, hit all the jumps first run. Didn't get it on GoPro because I had a chest mount on and they made me take it off and put it in my pockets. So instead of getting it smashed into your chest when you crash, it's just going to smash into your femoral arteries and try and kill you that way. I should have read the rules properly. Second run, put the GoPro on the correct place.
Bike build, sick. Now we're fucking talking, kids. Oh, wrong line. Oh man, the bike's fucking unreal.
My second run time was 3 minutes 10 on the GoPro. My best run on the GoPro over the weekend was 2:58. My qualifying run was 3:01 and my race run was 3:02. Very consistent times from run 1. The track did slightly deteriorate over the weekend, but I don't think it really made much difference.
So dusty. The last 2 runs, the track has really disintegrated.
So I thought that was quite interesting how comfortable I was on the bike compared to the previous setup and how easy it was to ride and just hitting lines, no problems. Third practice run, I was way over the limit and had some big super sideways drifts, but the bike was just super stable, really impressive. I was really happy with that. Yeah, third practice run, I was completely over my limits and got really sideways a few times, but every time super controlled. The bike just sitting in the travel, gripping, sliding, perfect. Couldn't ask for any more there. I had no crashes over the weekend and I only had one really sketchy moment where I thought I was going over the handlebars, like a big impact that I wasn't really expecting.
Oh my god!
I did exactly the same on the first run on the Norco with much less support in the fork, and I had a big over the bars and snapped the saddle and injured myself a little bit there. And I'm sure the support from the fork saved me there. Can't really prove it, but in this position, going over the bars, was convinced I was going over and it just supported me and carried on riding. So yeah, compared to the original setup on the bike, it was super easy to ride, super easy to hit the lines. And when you're in that situation on your bike, you've got so much more headspace free for looking at the track, riding, dealing with things that are changing, reacting. It's like a whole different experience to when you're battling against the bike to ride it how you want to ride it and learn the track, hit your lines, all that stuff. So that's probably the best race practice experience of my whole life, and I've been riding racing for over 25 years now. So yeah, that was a good start. Over the next few days we did change a few things, but it was just sag settings slightly, a few clicks here and there, adjusting the brake levers, spoke tensions, and I also had Rulesman suspension and Nigel from NSR Racing on WhatsApp over the whole time, and we were bouncing some ideas off each other, and I was telling them what was happening, what I was feeling like, and they were giving me little tips on what to change. Did feel like being like a pro factory rider, but I still got smoked really hard. I was definitely at least 20 seconds quicker in my head than what I possibly could have done on the original bike, maybe more. So I'm trying to make this video short, which is my biggest weakness. How did the modifications improve the bike? So starting with the NSR damper, it's really, really good. It's hard to say exactly what's happening without dyno readouts, which I will be getting from Nigel eventually, but they're on his laptop, in a container, on a boat, on the way to Tasmania, so it could be some time. But basically more noticeable low and high speed compression on the fork. Definitely less harshness at the same time. Really good, really impressive. But the caveat was I also stripped and rebuilt the fork, and we were doing a clamping protocol to line up the forks as best as possible for the least stiction, which could have had some impact as well. I wish I had a studio. Interesting note, I put 2 O-rings on the one on each stanchion, and I measured the travel at least 20 times over the last few weeks, and every single time the spring side had moved 2mm less than the damper side. Now I did talk about this in the last video, and the way that the fork is trying to move like this as it goes through the travel, because the amount of pressure in the air spring side is many more times than the damper side, and the spring's always pushing back. The damper's only trying to slow it down on compression and slow it down on rebound. It's not actually pushing or creating any force in that way. The fork's always trying to move up, and that does create stiction on the fork. Perfect world, spring and damper on each side of the fork, but that'd be too heavy to ride, and mountain biking is all about lightweight. So I've also got a much more interesting video coming about the fork, with more about the damper, tuning, tightening the bolts to get it straight. And I've also ordered a race only springs coil kit for the Boxer on the Commensal, which this is going to be really interesting, I think. Kitsuma coil, complete night and day difference from the air shock that came on the bike. Loads more support, more mid-stroke support from the coil and from the damping. We set the bike up with 33% sag at the rear wheel with Rulesman, and the fork down to 20% sag, which is what I think we should be going for. I'm not a suspension expert, but sag to me seems to be getting more and more overlooked. Shock damping gets lighter and lighter, partly because the products need to get lighter to hit weight targets. Then there's more reliance on the spring force and less reliance on the damper, which I'm not a suspension expert, but I'm not sure this is the way we should be going. You need sag for the wheel to drop into holes to keep the wheel connected to the floor, and that's just a basic fundamental of suspension design in every kind of suspension. But it seems to be getting less and less fundamental in the mountain bike world. You tell me. I've heard some World Cup riders this year are like riding 10% sag on the rear of the bike just to get the support they need, because the dampers aren't providing the support they need. Anyway, I do think the bike could be a little bit too progressive for me, especially with the amount of added damping from the coil. Rulesman guessed this shock has got between 3 and 5 times more compression damping force than the shock that came on the bike, maybe more. And Rulesman also set the bike up for me with 5mm of spring preload. Now you shouldn't really use spring preload in principle, but he was trying to smooth out the progression curve of the linkage. So preload the shock more, which reduces the initial suppleness, but will give you a more straighter and less progressive curve on the shock. And I also found out this morning, doing some more research about the bike, from Pink Bike and Dan Roberts' good review of the same bike, if you change the linkage bolt from the 29-inch setting to 27.5, this is going to reduce your linkage progression from about 28% to 23%. So I wish we would have known that before, and I'm going to go and try it this weekend. I definitely prefer my bar, stem and grip combo over the standard setup from Canyon, personal preference, but the short stem gives you more accurate steering because the centre of the grips are more in line with the centre of the steerer tube. So it's pivoting around the centre of the steerer tube rather than moving around in front of it like this. And I prefer more back sweep on the handlebar, so I can roll them forward and get a bit more upsweep which I think up sweep is more important than back sweep for keeping elbows out. I think if you turn your hands like this, it naturally pulls your elbows up. Yeah, you can see what I mean. You can try it. You can try it with your hands. And it's more comfortable. It also takes some pressure off the inside of my arms here, where a lifetime of riding and probably being on the phone and the computer too much, I'm starting to get some carpal tunnel issues there. But the back sweep does help to relieve that noticeably after a couple of days riding. And yeah, the grips just fit my hands better, and I don't have a waste of time lock-on. I just think lock-ons are a complete waste of time. They just reduce the amount of vibration absorption that the grips can handle. So the brakes were a big problem on the previous videos. I managed to find some Brake Authority Burley pads at the local shop. I couldn't find any Galfa. I can't say if these were precisely any better than standard pads. They were definitely less noisy when they were cold. And with a bigger, thicker rear rotor and the fresh pads, about 50% of the time I could do a full run on the track and the brake wouldn't overheat before the bottom of the main steep section.
Fucking brakes melting again now.
So the pad melting, overheating was definitely reduced, and the bite point changing was reduced as well.
That brake almost had to go to leave 2 fingers.
I think this is helped by the fresh pads are thicker, plus the thicker rotor pushes the pistons further back into the caliper. And as far as I can work out, and I'm not an engineer, the reason why the bite point changes when the codes hit a certain temperature is the seals get to a certain heat, and then there's less friction on the pistons moving, and I think they get too hot, the pistons roll back too much and they go too far back into the caliper. This is exactly like if you've got a bent disc or maintaining the brakes and you push the pistons back into the caliper completely, then you pull the lever. Your lever comes much back further to the bar and you have to pump it up. So I think the brakes at a certain temperature, the friction reduces on the piston seals, pistons go back too far into the caliper, brake point changes. I'm not an engineer, but that's what I think is happening. If there are any engineers out there that can prove this for me, that'd be great to know. Another little point on the brakes, the bit of grip tape on the lever, I can live without it, but for the sake of 5 minutes work, it's definitely worth doing. It will cut through your gloves pretty quickly, but just a little bit of extra accuracy, I like it. Now previously I said, and I thought the power was acceptable on the codes, and it was just the melting and overheating problems that I didn't like. But I brought some Formula Cura brakes for the common sal, and it's like a whole new world. I'm going to do another video about those brakes, but more power, less braking, less heat, more speeds, better all around. My brakes did overheat in qualifying and race run on the last steep section, which could have been a second or two of time lost. As soon as they get too hot, you can't slow down enough, then you have to keep braking more to try and slow down, then it gets hotter, then you can slow down less. Definitely not a good thing. And the final thing, because I just can't keep moaning about these brakes, but whoever designed them hasn't even designed them so you can tighten the 5mm bolt up properly. If you put the 5mm Allen key into the rear bolt to tighten it onto the frame, especially if you use like an oversized Beta or Vera wrench, you can't even put the Allen key straight into the bolt hole and tighten the brake up properly. Now, I can't trust them anymore when they weren't even designed properly around the bolt that connects into the frame. Ugh. And while we're on the subject of stupid things in the bike industry, just look at the hub. The rear hub spacing is just a complete joke. We were told a few years ago that we needed to change from 142mm hubs to boost hubs standard to move the spokes out 2mm on each side because we needed stiffer wheels. But it's 2021, this is a 29-inch wheel downhill bike which should have the strongest, stiffest wheels from any bike category, and there's like, I don't know, 30-40 millimeters of wasted space on the hub. The frame could be 40 millimeters narrower. There are some brands that make rear hubs with wider spacing, and I'm sure DT Swiss make one, but it's not on this bike. Yeah, mountain bike industry, come on. It does make me hard to trust anything that I read when something so simple still hasn't been fixed. On a positive note, Michelin Tires, really, really good. I'm going to do another full video on these tyres. They're really good in every way, except they're a bit too square on the 30mm rim on the 29er. They set up tubeless, no problem, and I did 5 or 6 days riding, including the whole race, with no tubeless sealant in, and they kept the pressure perfectly. Now they're losing pressure in about 24 hours, and I have to keep pumping them up, but there's still no sealant in there, and they're still mostly inflated. That's good. Fork offset. Now I was going to try and ride the crowns backwards, but after I missed the first day of practice, I didn't want to waste any more time on the second day of practice, so I changed it back to the normal 56mm forward crown setting, and I still haven't got around to trying it, but the steering lock is so minimal when the crowns are on backwards. I think I'm just too scared to ride it, especially as I'm not getting paid any danger money for this, or any money at all. Yeah, I haven't risked it yet. I might try it in the common cell, but I think the steering lock's even worse on that. If anyone knows a shop that's got some zero offset boxer crowns in stock, put me in touch, drop me a message somewhere, I'll buy them for the common cell. Now, some analysis of the bike on track. This first bit of analysis is quite interesting, I thought. So my brother came along to the race to watch, and he got some good footage. Now this guy was pretty fast.
Yeah, boy!
I've got to edit this. So this guy's pretty fast, and he finished in a good place at the race. And this is a pretty big hook. It's probably 6, 7, maybe 8 feet to flat, landed on braking bumps. And this guy landing looks to me like his bike's quite unstable. I don't have any footage of me doing it, but I guarantee my bike was way more stable than his landing that jump. It was just like, barely felt it, landed in the bumps. Absorb the impact, back to sag, super stable, absorbing the next bumps. That was really, really impressive from the fork and the shock. Yeah, I'm really impressed with that. That was great. Another part of the track that I was struggling with was this big flat corner. So you come in super fast, launch this jump, it's maybe 7 to 10 meters long, and you have to basically land on the brakes and then rail like a flat, well, it's bermed in the beginning, but then it went flat corner. Quite scary because it was loose in dust. And off the back of the corner, it was like you'll be off down the ski piste for a long way. And through all of practice, I just couldn't solve this corner. I was always just understeering and never really had the confidence I wanted getting through there. And it's definitely not a place that you want to understeer. And I think this could have been solved in a few ways. I'm pretty sure the shorter fork offset would have helped or solved it. I'm pretty sure a less square front tyre or a narrower rim for a rounded tyre would have solved it. Or less progression at the rear to keep the bike more stable. There's one problem I was having the whole time. Even though the bike felt really good, the back is always just going down more than the front. Or simply running the fork softer to balance it. But did have the balance of the bike sort of set rearwards because all the crux sections of the track were pretty steep, really steep on the brakes. But I'm sure that could have been solved. And going into that corner with confidence and no understeer, that could have been a couple of seconds on the speed you carried out of it down the next straight before the next braking section. Just guessing, but minimum half a second, could have been 2 seconds. This also could have been related to the short chainstay, which to me looks too short for the extra large. At least Canyon do offer slightly different chainstay lengths on the sender, whereas most brands don't change the chainstay length at all. But for the life of me, and I'm not an engineer, I can't see any relationship between the front centre and reach of the bike and the 10mm increase in chainstay length. And this is the same for the few bike brands that change their chainstay length. So the small sender in normal setting has got a 435 chainstay. The extra large has got a 445 chainstay. You can flip the chip and get up to 455. Is that right? Don't quote me on that. I think it's 455. But the short frame has got a 435 chainstay, 435 reach. The extra large chainstay is 455, but the reach is 65mm longer, and the recommended rider height changes by a minimum of 24 centimeters. This is all from Canyon's numbers, and this is not specific to Canyon. The chainstay length changes are very small compared to the front of the bike, and it's a nice gesture from the brands to change this, but I can only say this is like marketing based, not science based, because I can't see any relationship between the two. Surely if the small frame is 435 reach, 435 chainstay, and is perfectly balanced, the 510mm reach extra large should have a 510mm chainstay to keep the balance the same. If anyone can get in touch and prove to me from any bike brand the logic between increasing the chainstay length a lot less than the front end, I'd like to know. I'm interested to find out more about that. And yeah, if you look at these side-on stills of me riding, the back wheel just looks way too far under my ass to me. And remember from the unboxing video, I bought the extra large, not the medium recommended by Canyon. And this could also be a problem with the balance on this corner where the front wheel's understeering. So what else? I bought an O-chain, which I do like, which cuts down the pedal kickback. So this definitely helps for flat pedal riders like me. It just smooths out the pedals. But it does seem to generate less speed when you're pumping the bike. It does also reduce the amount of support you get from the back of the bike, but here we're getting into lots of different variables and different things. But overall, I do prefer the O-chain. I like it, it's good. With the asymmetric twin cam sort of square oval chainring and the support from the Kitsuma shock, you can sprint this bike as hard as you can and it just barely moves or doesn't move. Similar to my 210mm Nikolai G1 Enduro bike from last year, which was also super stable on the pedals, so don't want anyone else to tell me you can't pedal a bike uphill with a lot of travel, because in my experience the quantity of travel makes no difference at all compared to the bike design and the bike setup. Conclusion, it's absolutely amazing. The best bike, best setup, easiest to ride, best downhill bike I've ever had. Probably the best downhill bike money can buy. Obviously I've come up with a lot of issues there, but these are general mountain bike issues that are the same on many bikes. So it's really good for where we are in the bike industry at the moment, but it definitely can be better. Everything can be better. I want everything to be better. We should keep striving, Canyon striving to be better, sendering. Yeah, it's super stable, the size is good, traction was amazing, the frame feels compliant, corner's great, brakes great. Don't know what else to say really. It's fucking amazing for, compared to what I used to ride when I was younger, it's amazing. It's really good. Problems, so the snap bolt, Canyon did warranty that for free. They did say it's not normally a warranty issue, but they did say they would replace it as the bike was so new, which does make me a bit suspicious. It's not a warranty issue, but they did replace it. Maybe they're being kind or helpful, which is great, but if anyone else has snapped that bolt, let me know. I had at least 10 people tell me they had the same O-ring issue, so maybe the bolt's an issue. Might just be me and my ham-fisted approach to mechanicking. And yeah, they sent the bolt for free and they have sent a new O-ring kit for free. The internal hose rattling has definitely got much worse. it's a warranty case or not. And also, the paint on the logos has started to come off. It's very brittle. Again, a £6,000 consumer product, not the kind of thing you want to happen to your bike. And yet, standard shock and brakes, average at best. The 29er should come with 220mm rotors at least to have the same mechanical advantage as a 27-inch wheel with a 200mm rotor. As explained in the last video, take the shock off, take the brakes off, put them on eBay. With the current bike industry shortages, you'll probably get full retail price back for them. Buy a properly tuned coil shock. I can definitely recommend the Kitsuma. It does have a couple of little issues. They're going to be in another video. But the Kitsuma, no complaints really. Get a Kitsuma coil, get an Öhlins coil, get a super deluxe coil tuned for your weight and your riding style. It'll completely transform the bike, I'm sure. And anyone who buys a bike, you should be getting your suspension tuned. Don't listen to the manufacturers that try and tell you they've tuned their suspension perfectly from a 40 kilo beginner child rider to an expert 120 kilo e-biker. They're talking rubbish. It can't happen. Get it tuned for your weight, your riding style. Find a local tuner, make friends with them, go back to them. I can recommend J-Tech in the UK, Sprung in the UK, Mojo in the UK, Rulesman in Europe, Nigel, NSR Racing in Australia, Vorsprung in Canada. I'm sure there's loads more good ones. They're all tuners. I would definitely recommend, please people, get your suspension tuned. It's probably the most important thing on the bike. That's it, tried to make it short. It's not short again. They're all my thoughts on the sender. The Raffle's live, go and buy a ticket. Loads more cool stuff coming soon. I've now got a mechanic intern / slave working and living here since a few weeks, so things are moving on much more quickly. Getting these films edited and filmed are holding me back massively. So if there's anyone out there, a young student, intern, someone who's into bikes, someone who's into filming, photography, social media, all this stuff, you want a really badly paid job but a nice lifestyle here in Italy, get in touch. I'm looking for a filmer. I'm rubbish at it. We need to move things forward. Thanks. See you next time.